Hello and welcome to the You Are the Program podcast. There is not one, not two, not three, but four members of our podcast tonight. Before I welcome in the casuals, the usuals, Brian and Tyler, I want to welcome in Justin Thind, who we so very much appreciate that he's joining us tonight. It's someone we've wanted to have on and tried to have on for a couple weeks now. No better time to do it than the Youngstown State game. Justin, how are we doing, sir? Appreciate you joining us.
Doing great. Appreciate you guys having me. As I kind of was telling you earlier, you guys were all playing there when I kind of got to Michigan State as a freshman in 2017. So it's a really cool moment for me. Wouldn't have expected back in the day, kind of walking into Spartan Stadium for the first time in the student section 2017, that we'd be here all these years later doing a podcast together. So it's really cool and appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, it's making me feel old.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, same.
So before we get into anything, I don't want to make any false claims about what this podcast is going to be. It's not so much of a Youngstown State preview because we'll talk about them maybe a little bit, but as many of the early games in the season, there's not a ton that we know about Youngstown State. It's Division II school. They played Robert Morris and Mercyhurst. Don't know about Mercyhurst at all.
Sounds like a made-up school.
What was that?
Sounds like a made-up school.
What was the one high school?
Sycamore.
Yeah, Bishop Sycamore.
Sounds like a Bishop Sycamore. We don't know a ton about Youngstown State, but I thought this was a great time, and we all thought this was a great time to bring on Justin, who does a phenomenal job with the Michigan State coverage over at the Spartan Tailgate with 24/7. And bring him on and kind of look around. We're going to focus Michigan State. We're going to talk offense, defense, any surprises, things that have stuck out to each of us about the 2 weeks that we've seen, but really kind of the leap and maybe where we expect this team to go for the rest of the year. But also we're going to look around the Big Ten and see some of the teams that have kind of stuck out to us. And if any of our Big Ten title picks early on, I know Brian, Tyler, and I all made Big Ten title picks. Justin, I'm sure you have somewhere. And we're just going to talk about it. This isn't an interview. It's a roundtable. And let's get into it. First of all, Justin, I kind of wanted to start with, and we had our Michigan State Boston College post game. Obviously, a very, very, very big win, and we all talked about it. It was close, but I feel like that's something that we needed to see. And I know you've talked about it in some of your articles that you've released since then. What was kind of your biggest thing that you took away from that Boston College game that you want to see continue, or that maybe just stuck out to you in general that we haven't seen before?
For sure. I think all offseason, anyone that kind of followed the transfer portal, like, you knew the expectation was that the passing offense was going to carry this team to whatever its ceiling was going to be. It took 6 quarters to see it. And the first 4, like, you really weren't expecting to see it. Like, you're just not trying to show anything and get the win versus Western. But I thought they'd be coming out firing in the first 2 quarters, but I think Childs had like 50-ish passing yards at halftime, and you're not really kind of still seeing it. And you're thinking, all right, we're half into this game against a P4 school. Like, was it all a mirage kind of on paper with adding Krishan McCray and Amari Kelly and bringing back Marsh? And then halftime hits, and there's kind of everything that we've been waiting to see. And you kind of saw the full form of what this team can accomplish when that part of the team is clicking, even if the defense kind of maybe gives up 40 points that game. I think the biggest thing for me was you have an opportunity on prime time against another second-year coach, against a program that's kind of in the same spot as you are, with key recruits at home, and you had the ability to use revenge as motivation. With all of that being true, you had to win that game somehow, some way, and that's exactly what they did. So in terms of taking the next step as a program, it's winning games like this, and they did it because of the unit that we thought would kind of carry them to kind of victories like this all this season.
So Brian, Tyler, I want to kick it over to you as well, and this is where I want to bring in obviously the full scope of us. We were texting earlier today, and it was something that I didn't obviously mentioned many times in the last podcast. I was at a wedding, so it was tough for me to get through a ton of it. And I hadn't gotten to the point where I actually went to go see the 2-point play. And all 3 of us were texting about it earlier. that call individually and that just play call in general fired me up more than I thought it would on a Wednesday afternoon, just because that, like, in a nutshell, I felt like for 2 years, we've been waiting to see not only a Jonathan Smith offense, but a Jonathan Smith offense like that to execute and call a play that is so perfectly designed in that situation. Like it really did fire me up for the not only the remainder of this season, but what the vision could be going forward.
Yeah, I saw your text when I was sitting at work, and I was like, it was like 3:00, and you text that. And I'm like, what is this guy doing right now? He's thinking about the 2-point play from last Saturday.
It was from the Urban Meyer clip.
Okay.
You guys had seen it. So that's what brought it up. Not that I'm just a sicko sitting there twiddling my thumbs thinking about it.
But I mean, you are a Michigan State sicko, though. So that's what makes it great. But I was saying in the postgame pod for Boston, you work on your 2-point plays every week in practice. You have at least a period to do that in the low red or the 2-point period. And they chose the best one that they thought was going to work in that situation. I love the play call. Getting him out. We had shown like a kind of a naked boot all game 3 or 4 times. We were doing that. And to have the throwback off of it, I think was awesome. And it obviously he's won the game for us. So it was great.
You know, it's kind of cool how it worked out for us. I can't remember if it was the Western postgame or the BC pregame. I asked you, Brian, about the half rollouts as a quarterback and how it changes the launch point. I mean, we talked about the struggles of Ramil against BC. Even just that little half roll helps out the left tackle, helps out the offensive line so much to change that launch point. You have to go that much farther as a D lineman. But it's not even like they needed that much time to get the ball off because it was a great play call. You really had 2 options to throw the ball, and it worked out great.
I mean, what I loved about it so much is almost the serendipity was earlier on Saturday, us 3, Justin, for your insight, and I'm sure as an avid college football watcher, you notice this as well. Anytime there is a critical 2-point play or 4th down play that's on the left hash with the right-handed quarterback, the 3 of us cannot stand the fact that the number one call that you see is the sprint out right quarterback, that you have a flat route and everything that goes into that. And the defense, I'm just telling you, pretty much knows that that's probably coming in that situation, especially when they see some sort of motion, especially when they see the first read of someone, whether it's the slot receiver or the quarterback, start going out that way. They know that that's the action. And the way that Jonathan Smith and Brian Lindgren designed that play and dressed it up with Jack Velling going jet motion to the flat, taking everyone's eyes in a critical situation, that was just what was so pretty and serendipitous, honestly, to me, because we were talking earlier, I think it was the Duke-Illinois game. Duke was down, I think, 10 or some points or 11 or whatever it was, went for 2, did that same exact rollout, and the 3 of us immediately texted each other and said, that play never works in that situation.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing building along kind of that is a lot of what Lindgren has been doing kind of the first 6 quarters, you could say, has been to set up kind of those play action type of plays, not necessarily in terms of the eye candy of what you laid out of kind of looking across field when everyone else knows it's going short field, but even the fact that a lot of the play action kind of throws to Michael Masunas, you could double or triple the usage of those, but they don't. Like it's always actually a handoff on an outside stretch run. And then it wasn't until like the second quarter on like a crucial high leverage 3rd down that they actually pulled it, turned it into a rollout play action to Masunas. So it's like a lot of setting up. And of course, like we wish that they'd be like more productive, even while they're kind of in the early game setup stage of kind of just baiting them. But at the end of the day, like that stuff all worked and clicked in the high leverage moments in the second half when they were building up to all of them.
Couldn't have said it better. I think that's one of the biggest things. And let's roll into now some of our Michigan State early takeaways. Let's get into offensively, and I'll call this section the storylines of Michigan State so far. The biggest thing that I wanted to hit first was kind of the biggest surprise on offense. I want you guys to take this anywhere, whether it is a player, play calling, offensive takeaway, leap that we've seen this year, or Justin, to your point when you opened talking about the transfer class hitting really with those wide receivers. What has been kind of the biggest surprise on offense that you have seen so far through 2 games? I know it's been early, But what is the biggest surprise that you have seen, Brian? You can kick us off here.
Yeah, my first thing that came to mind, I mean, we were kind of expecting Aiden Childs in the receiving room to take a step, so that wasn't a big surprise for me. I thought Mekhi Frazier has been playing great. His numbers aren't incredible. He has 184 yards through 2 games, but he's been a consistent back for us. He's been great in the run game. So I think his growth, because we didn't really know who was kind of going to step up in the running back room. And he has a lot of speed on him. So I think his kind of growth and ability to run the ball, find the hole, pick up the blocks in the pass game, I think has been a good surprise for us offensively.
I think it's kind of the combination for me of Aiden Childs and their wide receivers. I would say Childs from week 1 to week 2. We kind of talked about week 1 how he missed some easy throws. But week 2, he kind of put the team on his back. Some of those plays he made with just the pure athleticism, making something out of nothing. And then this receiving room has been, I think, kind of to this point what we were hoping, what we were expecting it to be with the additions they made in the offseason. Guys surrounding Nick Marsh with some other players. So it's not just him trying to be a one-man wrecking crew, kind of like he was last year.
Yeah, for sure. And definitely those two things for me as well. I think something else that is, I don't know if I would call it a surprise, but more so a relief, is the run defense kind of picked up where it kind of left off last year. Michigan State lost Daquan Dowse and Maverick Hansen up the middle, and they didn't really bring in anybody other than Grady Kelly. And yet they're still rotating like 3 waves deep and still kind of stuffing the run. I know it's been 2 weeks. Obviously, we don't know a ton yet about kind of the longevity of that success. But the fact of the matter is it couldn't have been any better so far. And especially if the pass rush is going to be a little bit of a question mark, maybe a big question mark, you could argue. It's good that at least in the other facet of D-line play, they're still as dominant as you would hope for.
For me, and I know we just talked about it, and I don't want to overreact to one play call, but it kind of has been the offensive play calling to me. We talked about it in the open. Just seeing a full game plan put together, coming out of half and attacking something that we feel like we have an advantage and we can go downfield has been some sort of relief to me, because we didn't see it all last year. We've talked about on this podcast how offensively Brian Lindgren seems to be very, very good at scripting up, whether it's first of the half or out of half, putting together drives and knowing how to methodically do that down the field and attack weaknesses. But when a defense adjusts to what he's doing, it feels like things slow down. And that could be for a variety of reasons, whether it was experience, personnel, whatever it might have been last year. We saw it carry over in game 1. But game 2, like that has kind of changed my opinion on what this offense not could be, but just the success and the consistency that they could have. Is you saw it on test on Saturday night. The offense needed to be good, and it was good. They didn't just execute, but there were very, very well schemed up plays that they hit on and they executed on. So for me, it's a surprise, but it's also a relief, because it's for so much of what we've talked about and we're excited about with Jonathan Smith, Brian Lindgren, and what this offense could be. You finally saw it on display. So for me, it's that's the biggest surprise, I'd say, because I think receiver, passing game wise, we knew we would be dangerous, but just seeing that all put together.
And I want to kind of just build on that as well in terms of like coherent game plan, like coming out of halftime. Even on the defensive side of the ball, like how many times have we been watching Michigan State football the last 4 or 5 years where whatever happened in the first half, you knew there was a 100% chance that there was not going to be an answer in the second half. Like when we're watching that defense get shredded for the first 30 minutes, a Scotty Hazelton defense is coming out in the second half and getting shredded for the next 30 minutes. Like whether it's 2022 versus Minnesota, whether it's all the games against Washington, like. And that's fine, because like the personnel is still the same personnel. And yeah. I get it. You're not working miracles in a halftime. That's not how football works. But there's little things you can do. And it seemed like Rossi did it. And Michigan State gave up a field goal in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. And that was it until overtime. So that to me was like very, very refreshing and something we haven't seen. Even last year, I would say under Rossi. But this time we kind of saw that.
That's the thing that I want to remind everyone. And I know Tyler and Brian, I was very doom and gloom at halftime about the state of the game and
lightly.
Whatever it might be.
I texted in the group. I said I'm about to mute you. I wasn't joking.
But I have been very steadfast in the Joe Rossi support because whether it's personnel or not, he has just been able to, I think, manage throughout that, and he knows what he has. Like, Justin, to your point, talking about a Scotty Hazelton, he was so adamant about his personnel, his scheme, that we would get lit up and it didn't feel like anything would change. And you were just kind of waiting, and year over year, you'd say, well, I hope the personnel is better. I feel like with Joe Rossi now, it's a different story to where, yeah, the personnel's still definitely not where he wants it, especially up front. D-backs, I don't know as much about. I think a lot of that, we'll talk about that in the later portions of the podcast, but I feel like it's more communication. They got to get used to each other. We have safeties out, whatever it may be. But at least with Joe Rossi, I feel confident that we can hang our hat on one thing, and then the rest we can try and piece together and figure out. Like, that's the difference this year to last year was I do think that we have an offense that can at least compete with teams. And if we know we can hang our hat on the run defense, with Joe Rossi, I feel fine on defense. I'm never going to be overly dramatic besides game time and if we're losing at half in a big pivotal game. But I just do feel some sense of confidence there from Joe Rossi on that side of the ball.
I do want to add one point to that as well. From like an offensive perspective, like teams don't change offensively what they've been doing for the entire first half. Like it's not like a team's going to go from running the ball 20 times and a half to just throwing the ball the entire second half. So they're going to keep doing what they do. They're not going to create a new game plan. So the defense has to figure out a way to stop it. And Justin, to your point, we weren't really able to do that in past years. And just to figure out a way to stop what they were doing in the first half, I think has been massive for us these first couple games and even last year too. So.
All right, let's move it on to our next topic here. Focusing on the biggest area of growth offensively. So I think we kind of know where we're going to go with this. Tyler, I clipped a video and put it out on our Twitter. We've talked about this the last couple weeks, and especially even before the season, of something that we didn't want to see. So Tyler, how about you lead us off? Because I know we'll probably play right off of you on this biggest area of growth that we want to see.
Well, it's probably been my biggest talking point through the first 2 weeks of the season, and it's the rotation of the O-line. I said it last week. It's one thing to get guys' feet wet, get them reps early in the season. That might be the plan right now, to get guys reps, to get them comfortable if there's worst case scenario later in the season if somebody gets hurt. But we get into Big Ten play next week. I don't want to see 7-8 guys playing in the rotation throughout the game. I talked about it, that it means something to actually get in a groove, to play the first snap, play all the way through the game. You know how the guy next to you plays. You have certain calls. You kind of know their weaknesses. It makes a big difference to play next to the same guy for the entirety of the season. So I would love to see a 5 solidified and go from there.
And something real quick just to play off of that and everyone else chime in. Something that's been noted through 2 games, again, small sample size, but through 2 games, our top 3 graded offensive players in PFF. Number 1 has been Matt Golban. Well, technically number 1's Jaden Savory, but he's played, I think, a total of how many snaps?
2 snaps.
2 snaps.
2 snaps, sorry.
Yeah, 2. Okay, 2. So he doesn't count. He's number 1. I'll note that, but file it away for another day. Good freshman. We'll figure it out. Matt Golban has been number 1. And then number 3, or number 2, I guess, has been Michael Masunas, the reserve tight end, who's really flashed, and they use him a lot more in the pass game. I mean, we've seen nothing out of Jack Velling. But number 3 is Connor Moore, the transfer right tackle that we put in. And Tyler, this even brings up your point even more, because they've moved Connor Moore from right tackle to left tackle. There's drives where he's not playing. You have 2 guys in there that are your top 3 PFF guys. And Connor Moore, we talked about it specifically after the Western game. That right side of the line was moving people in the Western game in the first half. And I believe Connor Moore was probably on the right side for a majority of the snaps in that first half. But we just continue to rotate these guys throughout. You have 2 guys on this offensive line that have graded out highly in PFF. Again, small sample size. But I think there's more to give up front. And I think that's where the frustration kind of comes from.
Real quick, too, I think specifically in Connor Moore's case and guys that have been moving positions, it's not that easy just to move from the right side to the left side. Most people probably think it is. Just, hey, someone got hurt, move Connor Moore from right tackle to left tackle. It's not that easy. And it's almost like playing a whole different sport when you go from one side to the other. So just keep that in mind when people are talking about, let's just throw him on the left side. He's good.
Yeah, this is also my answer for this. And I've been like very passionately kind of like talking privately with people of like what are they doing here? And I was going to come on here and I was excited to get Tyler's insight and maybe learn why I'm wrong about this. And here he is kind of validating the whole thing. So I don't understand why you go ahead and you get a right tackle in Connor Moore, who you've tracked for 2 off seasons now. They were wondering if he was going to enter the portal for Montana State last year. He didn't. He does this time. You get him and he plays as well as you could have hoped. And then you are still going ahead and subbing in a right tackle who you decided with your internal evaluation that you needed to upgrade over last year. And I get it in week 1. And I get it if they would do it against Youngstown State. But Boston College, a game that you must win, like that right tackle that you went ahead and got that you think is your future franchise right tackle, like that dude should be playing all 62 games unless maybe he asks for a break. And all of those snaps should be at right tackle. And I guess on the other side of it, like Stanton Ramble had a couple rough reps here and there, but he's starting now as a redshirt sophomore. And last season, he started 9 games coming off a torn ACL the season before. Like that dude needs reps as much as almost anybody, especially the guys that are on the bench and are going to stay there unless there's an injury. So like I would be playing, like you don't see this kind of in the NFL. Like you don't see this anywhere else. Like the offensive line play the whole game, period. You can rotate the defensive line. They're playing off of each other a little less, even though I know there's still a lot of communication and all that. But like you need a ton of chemistry to play offensive line, at least from my understanding. I know Tyler and you guys can vouch for that even more, but I agree. Like that has to change going forward. I will say though, and I wasn't aware of this until Matt Sheen at Locked On Spartans kind of gave this fact, even with these rotations and even with some of the shaky play we've seen, last game against Boston College, Aiden Childs had the 3rd most time to throw in the nation per Pro Football Focus. And 78% of his dropbacks, he had 2.5 seconds to throw or more. So that's with this kind of illogical rotation. And when they fine tune that kind of has me way more optimistic about the offensive line than I might have thought I would have been at this point.
Was there any depth to the stat in terms of like, was it straight drops versus
time created? Yeah, no, I don't think so. Not that I know of.
So that's my biggest question. Where I go back to honestly play calling is, again, I want to compliment the play calling in an area where I don't think, we can talk about the great play designs and stuff, but I do think this coaching staff also deserves the credit for things that they're creating. And we had talked about it Boston College pregame of with Aiden Childs, like make your straight dropbacks, easy stuff. Make it the 1, 2, 3 quick game, get out. And then what was the stat, Brian, in terms of, and this was one game, it was the Western game, right? But his ADOT in terms of when he was clean, average depth of target was 5 yards, right?
Yeah.
But when it was messy, his average depth of target was 24 yards, right? So I do wonder what like the thought process is in game planning in these big games of obviously you're not going to want to make it muddy on him, but as often as they can in terms of making the quick game, the easy reads, the first read, just get it out, make those short and easy on him. And then when things do break down, when you do get in a 3rd down or something does happen, that's where you hit your explosive plays. And that's where I'm really proud that the offensive staff early on in the second half answered with the deep shot to Marsh, because I feel like as an offensive coordinator or offensive coach, you can get comfortable saying, hey, Aiden, we're just going to give you a bunch of quick stuff, and then you go create on your own. We'll start developing him, as we've seen, and start making him have those bigger reads and put more on his shoulders, which we're starting to see now. So I think there's 2 ways to look at that, but either way, focusing back on the offensive line, the rotation, I'm interested to see where it goes with like specifically the USC game, because you can't mess around in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see much change this week, but come USC, I am expecting, I'm hopeful that you've nailed down a starting 5 and you keep that same 5. barring injury.
Yeah.
Brian, do you have a big? I know we've kind of beat these points to death. Biggest area of growth offensively, or are we just all going to say offensive line?
I honestly don't have a lot of complaints offensively, besides what we've been talking about for the past 5 minutes. I guess just being consistent in moving the ball downfield, like limiting the 3 and outs. Obviously, it was pretty solid last week against Boston College, but getting an offense in rhythm, especially as a quarterback, is huge. And being able to get those quick throws and creating those 8 to 10 play drives where you go down and score a touchdown, kick a field goal. The more that you can do that, it sounds pretty simple, but the more that you can do that, the easier the game is for everyone. So being able to do that and just consistency and moving the ball, I think is something I'd like to see. Yeah.
Okay. Before I move to the defense real quick, I want to shout out our former teammate, Matt Seibert. He had talked about this on his Twitter when there was a play action pass, the deep throw from Childs to Marsh beginning in the second half. He had noted that pretty much all of, or if not a lot of, Aiden Childs' play action fakes look almost identical to how he's handing off the ball. Like, you can talk about growth and development and all of that stuff, but when it's those tiny little details, I think that's where also we need to give credit to the development, because you can look at the touchdown numbers, you can look at the Boston College game and think, finally, he's arrived. He's made the plays in the moment. But it's those kind of little attention to details things that are starting to add up a little bit with this coaching staff, this offense, and specifically Aiden Childs, that gives me a lot of hope going forward. So just wanted to mention that real quick. So, all right, let's move defensively. Justin, I don't want to call you out, but you did give the defense run game tip in the offensive section, which is fine. We'll
fair.
We'll build off of that. And I was going to start with the biggest surprise defensively, but first, this is where we're going to talk about Youngstown State for about 2 minutes, because their quarterback, Brian, how do you think this name's pronounced?
Brian's pronunciation. Brungard. This one's not that hard. Bo Brungard.
All right, man. Bo Brungard, through 2 games has almost, over 400 yards of rushing, 2 TDs. I think he has
in
6
week 1
touchdowns on the ground. Yeah, 6 touchdowns total on the ground, over 400 yards rushing. So something to note, and that will lead me right back to Justin's point about the run defense. I expect to see that again this weekend. Contain him, make him throw the ball, which is what we talked about in the Boston College game prior to that. And something this defense is really going to start leaning their hat on through this season with whatever issues through the pass game, because I think this run defense is here to stay. I think that's a Joe Rossi staple. No matter who you have up front, how bad the pass rush might be, we're going to make you one-dimensional. And so Michigan State, through 2 games, is allowing 2.08 yards per carry. I understand that the defensive numbers haven't been great, but I think this is a good time for this defense to get in, get out, focus on yourselves, get these guys out of there, because there's a big test upcoming with USC. So just wanted to make that note. With that, let's now get into the biggest surprise defensively. Brian, Tyler, Justin, anything specifically other than what's been talked about run game wise that's been kind of a surprise defensively from what we've been expecting?
I'm going to say that there hasn't really been a lot of surprises defensively. I think they've kind of been what we expected. We weren't expecting maybe a great pass rush, and we haven't really gotten one. Our secondary has been so-so for the past couple of years, and it's still kind of the same. I mentioned this in the post-game pod. I think the Kai Martinez's presence when eventually he comes back is going to be massive. I think his communication back there is a little more than what we thought it was, and his lack of being back there is preventing some communication happening in the back end. So I'm going to say there hasn't been a lot of, and Jordan Hall has been just as good as we expected. So I don't think there has been really a lot of surprises. It's kind of just been what we thought was going to happen, and hopefully we have some more positive surprises as the season rolls on.
Yeah, I think definitely well said by Brian there. If not a lot of surprises so far and just a lot of stuff we're going to continue to monitor. I was trying to kind of see if there was any interesting developments from like the snap counts that PFF offers. For both of the first two games, Michigan State has played 4 different rush ends, all between 15 and 24 snaps. So kind of interesting that I figured it'd be by committee, but I didn't think there'd be 4 guys. I thought maybe you'd be looking at maybe 2, 3 guys. So we'll see if that continues. We'll see if anybody can separate themselves and maybe kind of inch up to 30 snaps. Kind of on the flip side, and maybe this wouldn't be a surprise to anybody that maybe like really wasn't in the weeds, but I had kind of been hearing kind of all through camp in June and everything that they love like 7 of their linebackers or so. But part of the reason why they haven't played as many of them is obviously probably because Jordan Hall is having by far the best season of his career and couldn't be kind of playing any better outside of maybe a few coverage lapses here and there. And then Darius Snow especially has been playing well. I know they were talking about both Samaj Bridgman and Marcellus Pulliam kind of being good enough to take snaps away from him at Sam backer, and that hasn't happened yet. So I guess positive surprise that the starting linebackers are holding off the backups, because I was kind of expecting more of a rotation there for sure, especially in some sub packages than we've gotten.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. The one thing I will say when it comes to the secondary, I think we saw the drop off when Malik Spencer got hurt in that game against BC. So I think what you have now, I mean, obviously barring injury, is good enough to be competitive. But when you saw when he went out of the game, the lack of communication, guys running free, we talked about how BC scored their touchdowns. They were all busted coverages. So when he's in the game, this team's good enough. Obviously, with the addition of Nakai Martinez, that's going to help a lot. But I think it's just an area of concern, maybe not what a surprise right now, because like you said, Brian, it's kind of what we've grown accustomed to, unfortunately, the past few years. And I don't know how much we expected the secondary to be, how much better we expected them to be, but just the lack of depth maybe when with the secondary.
Yeah, I mean, I think the depth is better than last year, but still, when you talk about losing your 2 safeties, and it was so apparent in the first half. I mean, those guys were wide open, especially we talked about on the Boston College post game. That first route and 3rd and 7 that they gave up for a touchdown is just inexcusable. You're in a zone, you don't pass it off, you don't communicate it. It's just a simple swing route on 3rd and 7 that there you don't even allow your pass rush to even try and make an impact, because it's a one look and he's out leveraged, right? Brian, you talked about that. And so that would be kind of the biggest surprise for me, is some of the just communication errors. There was nothing that popped off in the Western Michigan game. I know Western hit a couple throws. They were all pretty well covered, so that's never going to irk me the wrong way. But I really do hope coverage-wise the communication continues to pick up, because as we talked about the run game, I think we can continue to lean on that to a certain extent, depending on opponent. But for me, it was the linebackers as well. Justin, did you have something?
I was just going to add on the safeties front, and I forgot to mention this even in my articles kind of this week and anything else. Not only was Michigan State missing Martinez and Spencer for some of those snaps there, and obviously Martinez the whole game, but Tracy Revels was supposed to be Michigan State's 3rd safety, and he was also out that game. And he's pretty much their only other cover guy in that top 3 group. Obviously, our Morion Smith, very, very good thumper, great tackles in space. And obviously, we know his inspiring story, kind of raising all 5 of his siblings by himself. So all that stuff is kind of admirable in terms of like how guys stepped up in this game and kind of piecemealed it together and stepped up. But I think like when you're looking at Nakai Martinez and Malik Spencer and even Tracy Revels playing there, I'm optimistic that the safety play will at least be better. But obviously we'll see in terms of greater tests down the road.
It's good at least to know, and it gives me some comfort knowing that these injuries are not long-term. Like last year, there were so many injuries, and Dylan Tatum right away, season ender, right? And there were so many guys early on that got hurt for a long time, that it wasn't just an issue. Like you knew it was going to be not only an issue for this game, like it was going to be an issue the entire season. So it from a morale standpoint, that hurts, right? But at least with Nakai Martinez, we know he's going to come back. Whether it's this week or next week, I'd rather it just be next week and not even play. I know Jonathan Smith had said something to the effect of when he's ready, he's just going to play. I hope he's just ready on Monday. That's my point. But I do think that there is a little bit more hope in terms of I don't think all things are lost in the pass game. Now the pass rush, obviously, it's going to continue to be a big concern, which transfers me into the next point. What is our biggest concern? And I think this can be just a quick discussion defensively. But what is our biggest concern on the defensive side of the ball? And let's just talk about it because it's going to be pass rush. It's going to continue to be pass rush. So let's start it with our biggest concern, but let's talk about, do we think there's a floor that can be raised, at least with this group versus last year? Because it was 2 months last year that we didn't get a sack. Justin, I don't know if you remember the exact amount of games that it was.
It was at least 6, but I don't know if it actually went all the way up to 8.
It was somewhere. We have said that exact same number on this podcast too.
I honestly think it was 7.
Okay.
Either way,
pass rush wise, biggest
It's an
concern.
insane stat.
Let's talk about it. Brian, what do you have?
I mean, I don't know if there's any other point to be made except you got to get pressure on the quarterback. As a quarterback myself, I do not like throwing from a dirty pocket, and being able to generate a pass rush is a big part of the game, and it's something that the quarterback constantly thinks about the entire time. It changes how the other team calls plays. They have to prepare differently. They have to scheme differently. They maybe have to run or throw in a different direction than what they normally do. So I think generating a pass rush is going to be obviously a key point for not only this week, not only next week, but pretty much the entire season. So.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, like there's only so much that people can get better during a season. And I don't know if any of these edge rushers are going to go from kind of all being serviceable to like one of them having a 7.5 sack season. Unfortunately, that's just not how in-season development usually works. I guess Michigan State's plan this whole offseason, and they were very transparent with this, and this was the only kind of pessimistic tone that I had heard about any part of the team this offseason, was they knew they would need to rely on the linebackers to kind of create some of the pressure. And we haven't seen that many blitzes being called so far. So I guess they haven't really used the kind of solution to their lack of pass rush that they had kind of been talking about. But like, I don't know necessarily how much hope I have in that. And Brian, maybe you can kind of speak to this and educate us more. But like, if you as a quarterback know that these guys are not going to have a pass rush going into a game, there's not anything in the middle of the game where if they start blitzing like 6 guys that like you guys want to have a counterpoint for, right? Like you just kind of go to the quick passing game and there's more slants, more drags, more underneath stuff. Like I don't necessarily know how much that's going to change things for them. It's just going to be maybe them getting killed in a different way of maybe having to cover for 4 seconds instead, kind of giving up a 2-second completion. So like, is that really something that we can put hope in? Like, what do you kind of think of that being their kind of solution?
That's a good point, because if a team's like their blitz percentage is like 15-20% throughout a game, when you're scouting them pregame, they may get you on that the first couple times they bring a pressure when they don't normally bring a pressure, but when it's third down and they're going to bring a pressure, or even if it's first, second down and they start doing it a lot more, the coach is just going to call, to your point, quick hitters, balls that can get outside, throwing those screen balls to the outside, letting guys run in space, and basically eliminating the linebacker blitz. So I definitely don't think it's something that we can rely on. It's maybe a quick fix mid-game, but it's not going to be a sustainable model for how we're going to run our defense.
But even to that point, and Tyler, you can talk about it from an offensive line perspective, is I guess when parlaying off of Justin's point about when that they're up front, if they're bringing 4, you feel very comfortable. You're gonna protect against it, right? But how much during the week and in game plan and in prep goes into, okay, we feel comfortable with when they're in base defense, we know they're bringing 4, that we can block them up. Let's make sure we are very sound on their blitz looks and what their blitz tendencies are. From like an offensive line perspective, how quick of maybe it's one time they catch you off guard, but like once you guys catch on to whatever blitz look they feel like they're going with that game, do you feel like you can catch on to it?
You definitely can. And a lot of it really, especially in college, defenses aren't good about disguising it. And you can kind of see where it's coming from a mile away. And the older I got, the easier it was to diagnose where it's coming from. A lot of times you have safety over the top. That corner's coming. or you can kind of see the linebackers creeping up. Like you know kind of where the blitz is coming, even if it's not typically a down where they blitz, you can still see it coming from a mile away. So you see all those looks during the week in camp or in practice. You go through every blitz look possible. Coaches will draw whatever comes to their head, even if it's not a blitz they normally run. You go through every possible blitz, and then come game time, you're pretty much ready for anything.
It's funny that you bring that up too, because I think of the 4 years that I played in Coach Tressel's defense, at least 3 of them in preseason camp, one of the biggest things that we tried to work on early in camp was disguising blitzes. And that I feel like that's one of the biggest things and differences you can see from whether it's elite college defense to average or good college defense, or even just college in general to the pros, is just when there are pressure looks, not everyone's still great at disguising it, but the disguise is so much different because, to your point, young kids and especially depending on who it is, if it's not an experienced person, just wants to get to their spot. They don't want to MA, right? As a defender, the worst thing that you can have on your grade report after a game is a CEMA, and that is either missing your spot, missing your blitz, or just doing the wrong thing. So many times the tendency in college, especially if there is not a defense that is so confident in itself, they can start to just show things because they don't want to be in the wrong spot. You'd rather just get a negative on the play rather than a CE because you know what's going on. So I think that's a great point, Justin, that you had brought up. It's a good conversation that we had sparked here. I think we beat that defensive point to death. Let's open this up because I think this is where I really want to hear, Justin, your input. I feel like we've started to incorporate a little bit more Big Ten. Looking around the league, we did a lot more previews coming into this season with Michigan State's schedule specifically. And again, I'll always preface this with it's early, but around the Big Ten, I feel like there have been some teams that have popped and have shown us some stuff that we either didn't expect or it just looks a little bit better than even we were expecting. Off of top of head for me, it's like a Minnesota, USC, Oregon. But of those teams in your mind that have kind of popped and shown what they could be this year, who is the team that you think what they've shown is actually their true identity of who they are?
I think Oregon has kind of an offensive approach with like the Dylan Gabriels of the world and Bo Nix's with the average depth of target that I think it's just very replicable. And I wasn't sure if with Dante Moore, who kind of has that rocket arm and kind of has the ceiling and the tools and all that, if they were going to continue to do that and whether it was going to be plug and play and whether they were just going to go ahead and keep rolling on offense, especially losing some of the guys like Tez Johnson and some of these quick hitting guys that they kind of used to have yak with. And it seems like that is exactly what they're kind of going to do. And they are just going to be this team and they're going to keep it rolling. And I know they replaced most of their front 7 kind of via the draft. And we'll see how that holds up against some of the more kind of competitive teams they play. But I think, Oregon has suddenly jumped into the conversation that I thought originally was Penn State dominant, with kind of me waiting to see what Julian Sain was going to be and with seeing what Ohio State's defense was going to be, despite them going to Matt Patricia, who I can go on a 7-hour rant of by itself. But I think, they're the team that's kind of jumped into that discussion. Luckily, Michigan State doesn't play them. So I think at the end of the day, you're looking at Michigan State's schedule alone, and you're seeing a clear delineation, at least in my opinion, of if you thought Michigan State was going to win about 6 games, you're very, very confident now that they're going to do that. But I don't know if you're any more confident on that 7th win or beyond, because kind of the wins I chalked up for Michigan State before the season, obviously Western, Boston College, and Youngstown, those are there. I thought they would lose to USC, and USC looks great. Jaden Maava, I guess, looks great, but more so Jacoby Lane and Mekhi Lemon. And then Nebraska, I thought they would beat. Nebraska looks a touch worse. I know we only have a 1-game sample size against Cincinnati, so we can't really pound the table on that. I thought they'd destroy UCLA. Looks like that's what's going to happen. Indiana, I thought they would lose to. I don't know if necessarily we have a reason to believe they're going to be as good as last year, even though I thought Fernando Mendoza was going to be a better quarterback than Sorsby, or not Sorsby. Rourke, yes.
Rourke.
So basically the games that I thought were wins are like stronger wins, but the games that I thought would be losses are not really creeping up towards the win category. And like you said, Minnesota is one of the teams that's popping. Penn State I had as a loss, and I had Iowa and Maryland as wins, and I think those teams look a little bit worse. Maryland's quarterback is pretty electric, but we'll see kind of what the large sample size looks on him as a freshman.
The September Merchants. The month is almost halfway over. They better pick it up.
Pick it up. They haven't scored 70 yet.
That one fan that was getting after me last weekend, he better know what's coming for him in November.
I think my team that has been a little, I guess not surprising. The two things kind of the same as you, Justin. I was trying to see how Julian Sam was going to be and how Dante Moore was going to be. And I think both are really good. So I think my biggest surprise, I guess, are Oregon and Ohio State. I mean, I knew they were going to be good. I was just curious of how their quarterback play was going to be. And I think those are the two top teams in the Big Ten right now. Penn State, as the jury's still out on them for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think is it too early to say that Oregon is a wagon warning?
They've always been a wagon, though.
They're certainly on watch because of the fact beating an F or Power 4 team by 66 points is the most unhinged thing you'll see. And they pulled Mike Gundy put gasoline on that fire, but it's just when you beat a Power 4 team by 66 points, it's absurd.
I think Dan Lanning is a top 3 motivator in college football. He'll use anything and everything to their advantage, and I'd want to play for that guy. He fires me up. I'll say my team, I think, is a touch better than maybe we expected at Illinois. I think they were projected to be. Obviously they're projected to be top half of the Big Ten, top third of the Big Ten. Their win against Duke, because I know a lot of people, I talked about this last week, a lot of people were high on Duke in the ACC, but Illinois' defense is stingy. I just think they're a team you don't really want to play. They kind of remind me of MSU back with the stingy defenses. It's tough to move the ball, and they know who they are. They're gonna run the ball. We almost got that team confident, and they're just a team you don't really want to play. So I think that team's a touch better so far through 2 weeks than maybe people expected, but we'll see how the rest of the season plays out.
Illinois has some unbelievable games coming up that will be very telling within a month. They play Indiana on September 20th on the road. Then they get USC at home the week after that. Then 2 weeks after that, they get Ohio State at home. So they are fascinating, but Tyler, to your point, they know exactly who they are, and up front and their front seven, especially on defense, they just know who they are and they know their style. Got to give a lot of credit to them. For me, it's Minnesota, because when we talked about them in the preseason podcast, forecasting Michigan State, Minnesota, just going through their schedule, Coy Parrish has been someone that's been, obviously very well known on that side of the ball, or I guess both sides of the ball now. But I finally think for once, and whether this plays out through the season, I finally think for once they might have a quarterback that can elevate their floor a little bit. And it really does intrigue me with PJ Fleck, because we talked about the program that he's built is very consistent. They do what they do, right? But I think if you get someone that can elevate that offense and elevate their pass game, which Drake Lindsay might be for them, he's still young. The jury's out maybe on this season if he can truly elevate, but I think he is someone that might be able to elevate a Minnesota team further than that. So they have caught my eye very much early on. Obviously, being up 59-0 at half, I don't care who you play.
Plus 85.5 lock.
You just don't give 80.5 to anybody, especially Northwestern State. All right. I texted you guys that immediately. Just you don't give it to anyone. And Northwestern State cashed in for me. But okay, I think this is a good look. And now I want to change to Big Ten title picks. And has that changed? I know we gave out ours. Brian had Ohio State. Tyler and I both had not Michigan State. I wish. We both had Penn State. Justin, who was your preseason Big Ten champion, and has that prediction changed in your opinion through 2 weeks?
It was Penn State, and it hasn't changed yet. But part of my rationale, because it was kind of like a dual-edged kind of argument of Penn State did what Michigan and Ohio State did the last 2 years of like dishing out heavy NIL to all the seniors that weren't supposed to go top 15 in the draft, because obviously Abdul Carter had to go and Tyler Warren had to go. But you're looking at all the rest of their guys, Katron Allen, Nick Singleton, Drew Aller, like all these guys coming back for that one last dance. And I think the way that they play is very James Franklin proof. It's like run the ball, get like neutral to plus down or plus yardage, kind of 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s. Like it's a way that copy and paste against pretty much every single opponent, and the talent deficit between them and whoever they're playing is like pretty much a big delta every single week. So we also have, I will say, devil's advocate, like for the James Franklin stuff, like he has a Big Ten title and he lost by I thought Oregon and Ohio State weren't going to be as good as they are. And that side of the angle is changing a little bit. And those two teams do worry me much more than they did going into the season. So I'm not changing my pick, but kind of half my rationale I still stand behind for Penn State, but the other half is starting to kind of be something to monitor.
I kind of love you said, are they James Franklin proof? I'm going to start using that. Because it's so true.
Yeah.
I had Ohio State, like you said, Dante, as my preseason Big Ten, and until they prove me wrong, I don't think I'm going to be changing that. I'm confident in that pick. I think Julian Sands going to be a great quarterback for them. And until someone can really knock them off and show them, besides Michigan, I guess, but that's regular season games. It doesn't matter for the Big Ten championship. But I still got Ohio State.
I'm not changing my pick either, but I think if you pick any of these three teams, you're not wrong. The way they've looked so far this season, Oregon's a wagon, and Ohio State and Penn State are what they are. So you're not wrong in any of the three, but I'm going to stick to Penn State.
To Justin's point, I'm not changing it from Penn State just because I think early season they play nobody. You're not going to see anything for a month until they play Oregon. Like, you're not going to see anything out of them, and they're probably going to look black for about a month. But to your point, they have seniors. They have that motivation of, okay, we didn't do it last year, so let's do it this year. It's always just going to come down to what kind of error might they make in that big game. And we'll see through I think now it makes it tougher that they have to play Oregon. We talked about this preseason. We knew that Oregon was coming in, but obviously with their ascension, I think through 2 weeks, that game instantly becomes fascinating because I was just chalking that up as a W for them. I don't know anymore. They're going to have to play Oregon and they're going to have to play Ohio State. So they got to get one of those because I don't know where else Oregon might fall unless they just, drop another one, or an Ohio State might fall. Not going to change it, not going to overreact, but there is some pause with Penn State right now. So, okay. The last part, and Justin, I don't know how often you listen to the podcast. You can say very often. But what we always do in the pregame podcast is we give locks. We give our one pick for the week that we feel very confident in. I know that you give out picks for 24/7. Or not even 20. This is your free Substack, correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing this year. Yeah, a lot of the people in 24/7 are like anti-gambling. I guess this is a thing that people don't gamble on sports, but a foreign concept to me. So kind of moved it out of that umbrella and kind of just putting it out on Substack for free. Yep.
Okay. All right. On the season, I am 0-2. Tyler is 0-2. Brian is 2-0. Justin, as our guest, would you like to lead us off with your favorite bet of the weekend and your lock?
Yes. And I don't know if this is legal, but I would like to give a 2-leg parlay. Because I believe in both legs firmly, and kind of parlaying it allows you to buy a point or two just to capture another field goal key number. So I'm going with Boston College minus 10.5 at Stanford. And actually, that's the regular line. I don't know why it's only 10.5. I get the cross-country body clock thing, but like, it's Stanford. Like, Frank Reich barely wanted to like coach football his last year in Indianapolis as a head coach of the NFL, let alone now being dragged all the way to Stanford and coaching there. They don't have a roster. And then you're looking at Oregon minus 26.5 at Northwestern. I think the regular line there is 28.5. So I bought 2 points on that. So on DraftKings, that's plus 228. So I think those are the two kind of teams where Vegas is going like completely overboard with kind of factoring in cross-country trips and body clock. Oregon game is obviously on the pier or whatever they're calling their coastal alternative stadium for a while there. But yeah, I love both of those picks. And you're telling me if Dan Lanning can get them excited to play an Oklahoma State team and beat them by 60-something, that he can't beat Northwestern by 30-something on the road, like I'm taking those any day.
That's what I'm saying. First of all, you are the first guest picker for locks in the history of our program, and you went with a 2-leg parlay, so I applaud that.
We're going to have to track that. Anyone that gives a guest pick. So now be trackable. You're kicking it off, Justin.
And you are a smart man because you backed the guy that's 2-0. I had Oregon minus 27.5. That's what I saw on when I was looking about an hour ago. So I like them. I feel like Oregon's an absolute wagon, and I think they every point you made about them beating Northwestern, I 100% agree. I think they're probably – I mean, Northwestern's like the most – it's not the most like deflating stadium in the Big Ten, but like there's not a lot of energy. There's energy there because there's a lot of Michigan State fans in Chicago, but Dan Lanning will get some energy going for the Oregon Ducks. So I see them covering this number. So I have Oregon minus 27.5.
Maryland would like a word for the worst Big Ten stadium.
Yeah, well, I didn't say worst. I said most deflating, energy deflating.
Yes, I got to get off the schneid here, or the lock of the week is going to turn into Fade Higbee segment. So my lock this week is going to be USF plus 17.5. I don't trust Sid the Sloth back there at quarterback for Miami. So I'm going with USF. They've been impressive through 2 weeks so far. I didn't really expect that. They screwed me last week. I forget who they played. Whoever they played. Oh, Florida. I liked Florida last week. We saw how that turned out. So I'm going to ride the hot hand with USF.
All right. I was looking up a faulty line, and I don't know where this came from. I had a Vanderbilt, South Carolina matchup that was Vandy plus 4.5, and they're playing. Nope, I'm right. All right, scratch that. Vanderbilt plus 4.5 at South Carolina. So these two have a common opponent. South Carolina played Virginia Tech week 1, had a punt return to beat them by 11? Was it 11? It was double digits. It was something. They struggled most of the game. Vandy was down at half on the road at Virginia Tech last week and ended up winning 44-20. I'm buying all the Vanderbilt stock I can get. I think they have an identity. I like football programs that have an identity. And I think everyone just sees the flashy Lenora Sellers, Heisman talk, all of that with South Carolina. I like the identity of Vanderbilt football. I have them plus 4.5 on the road. So I said in my notes section I might go 0-12 this year. So
I like that. I have a sprinkle on a money line parlay for Vanderbilt and Texas A&M this week. So that's I like that. Obviously that leg.
A&M, that's going to be a great game. A&M Notre Dame.
We all chose road teams. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Usually doesn't work out well. I took 2 road favorites the last 2 weeks and lost both. So, all right, we are going to wrap up here, but this has been so much fun, Justin. I can't thank you enough for coming on and having this roundtable with us. It was a blast. I'm sure we will ask you to come on again if you are willing enough to spend some time with us, but it's been a lot of fun. I really hope you enjoyed it as well. And
yeah, definitely. Great discussion all the way around. And not every day kind of you get the high level insight from you guys that actually played and put on the pads and were in the film room. So very insightful and a lot of fun for me for sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys.
And with that, we'll talk to you guys after the Michigan State Youngstown State game. And it's a big week next week. Let's load up for that. Go Green.